I Write to Listen, a poetry collection by Dee Carr. Copyright 2026 by Dee Carr. All rights reserved. Dedication. For the ones who chose me when biology didn't. For the friends who became family through time, truth, laughter, and repair. For those who stayed when staying required effort and left only when growth demanded it. This book exists because you made space for my voice to become honest, my silence to become safe, and my becoming to be witnessed. You are not a chapter in this work. You are the ground it stands on. Section 1. The Cost of Staying Upright. 1. I write to listen. I didn't write to be a poet. I wrote because the mirror stopped agreeing with me, because one night, sitting alone, I realized the voice I trusted most had been rehearsed for other people. The words came like breath after panic, ugly, shaking, necessary. Not to sound wise, to stay honest. I wrote to pin down the moment. I stopped recognizing my own restraint as maturity and named it fear. Some people write to be heard. I write because listening costs me everything. It cost me the version of myself that knew how to survive without being present. It cost me excuses. It cost me the safety of almost. Understanding myself wasn't healing, it was an eviction, a removal of who I pretended to be, so I could no longer hide behind function. If others see themselves here, it's because truth doesn't whisper, it exposes. This isn't poetry, it's evidence. I write to listen, because silence finally told me who I'd been avoiding. 2. The downside of up. Up isn't always freedom, sometimes it's just pressure in a prettier view. Up builds thrones. From your broken sleep, the higher you climb, the more you carry. Smiles hide the weight, but your bones don't forget. That's the downside of up, standing taller, being seen by everyone, while feeling heavier inside. 3. Overdrawn. Some people aren't careless with their lives. They're just overdrawn. They keep pulling strength from a future they may never reach just to stand upright today. So when they move with bruised hearts and borrowed patience, don't call it weakness, call it survival. Mercy is knowing you're looking at a soul that's been living on credit and choosing not to charge them additionally for it. 4. Untruthing. The world feels unbearable because it stopped pretending. We're meeting people where the stories used to be, and grief slips in. Through every revealed truth, what's dying is not our hope. It's the versions we clung to when the truth felt too sharp. And in that quiet collapse, we're left with something heavier and far more terrifying. What is real? 5. The hues of our actions. What if our actions bled color? No masks, no mercy of misunderstanding, just truth staining the air around us. Kindness would not need to speak, it would glow. Harm would not argue, it would darken everything it touched. Even inaction would have a shade, the dull ache of gray avoidance, the cold blue of fear dressed as peace. We would walk softer then, knowing every choice leaves a tint, knowing character is not what we say, but the color we cannot hide. And maybe nothing would change at all, because the hues already exist, and the world has always been reading them, even when we pretend not to see. 6. Good is the disguise. Sometimes it isn't good versus evil, but two fires arguing over who is light. One burns loud and honest. The other warms, asks you closer, steals the air quietly. It wears goodness like a costume, cosplays virtue with a practiced smile, knows the language, knows the cues, knows exactly when to kneel. As with the villain who doesn't hunt heroes, it recruits them, renames harm as care, calls necessity what should have been choice. It says for your good and believes it. Because evil that knows itself can be fought. Evil that thinks it's good builds the world and calls dissent wrong. 7. When wrong becomes their right, wrong dresses as order and calls harm necessary. Truth waits, justice bends, the cage gets renamed. They call it balance, with the scale nailed down, freedom, when only some can breathe. Still, roots push. Injustice needs forgetting, memory is rebellion, so we name the wrong even when they crown it right and refuse the lie as law. 8. Front row. I used to measure myself by how far I still had to go, never by the miles already burned into my feet. So I claimed the seat closest to the truth, where flinching isn't allowed, where growth shows its scars and still stands upright. From here, I watch effort become evidence, patience turn into muscle, and the person I'm becoming recognizes me back. No curtain call, no permission slip, just me choosing to witness, my own unfolding from a front row seat. 9. Let today drive the vision. Let today drive, not because it knows the way, but because it's the only place your hands can touch the wheel. Yesterday taught survival. Tomorrow keeps asking who you'll be. Today decides if belief shows up or stays a thought. Every breath is a vote. Every action confesses what you think you deserve. The vision isn't ahead. It's watching how you honor this moment, deciding whether it's safe to arrive. 10. The weight of kindness. I got tired of being good. In a world that mistook patience for permission, that leaned on my silence and called it peace, I loosened my grip, not on love, but on the weight of saving everyone. The world didn't collapse. It learned to listen to itself. And I learned this. Kindness doesn't mean carrying the load. Sometimes it means setting it down. 11. Believe the woman's pain. Her words are not echoes, they are footsteps. Each one earned, each one heavy with truth. She does not speak for spectacle, but because silence has already bruised her enough. Pain learns a woman's language early, settles into her bones, waits until being believed becomes an act of survival. Listen. Not to reply, not to doubt, but to honor what courage sounds like when it finally speaks and is answered, not with denial, but with justice rising, with dignity restored, with a future where her voice is no longer a plea, but a victory. 12. Cosmic tribes. The universe does not shout, it guides, through wind, through soil, through stars still unnamed. I feel it all. We are not divided by form or faith. We are a tribe, souls orbiting the same truth, each carrying a different light. I knew it one night beneath the stars. I was never alone. The universe was introducing me to my people. We gather in difference, learn in listening, become in connection. Ocean-hearted, earth-bound, star-born. Every meeting is intentional. Every step leaves an echo. The universe is not around us, it is moving through us. And in knowing I belong to something vast and unfolding, I walk forward full of hope. Section 2. When the truth stops whispering. 1. A little of all of me. I am not one thing. I am the echo and the answer, the lesson and the scar that taught it. I carry laughter that survived heavy days and silence learned from rooms where my voice wasn't invited but showed up anyway. There's tenderness in me, the kind that bruises easy because it refuses to harden. There's also armor, worn thin from choosing mercy when bitterness begged to stay. I am made of people who loved me right and people who didn't know how, of doors that opened wide, and some I had to leave with bleeding knuckles just to prove I tried. I hold faith that bends but doesn't break, hope that limps some days, and joy that sneaks up when I'm not looking for it. I am someone's prayer, my ancestors' unfinished sentences, and my own decision to keep becoming, not polished, not complete, but present. This is a little of all of me. 2. Beyond reach. They reach for what shows, not what survived. They can take the proof, the place, the breath from a moment, but not the meaning. What you earned in silence, what pain carved into wisdom, what love taught you to guard, lives beyond their hands. They can't touch the becoming. They can't steal the soul. They can't own what exists beyond their reach. 3. The compass beneath the flesh. Let heart always be your guide, not the soft thing they praise, but the ancient one, the one that learned survival before hope had a name, before temples and titles. The heart beat truth into bone, whispered go. When the path vanished, the world teaches fear, how to doubt the dark, how to silence instinct. But the heart remembers what we were before permission. It is not gentle. It will lead you through loss, burn away false selves. This is not cruelty. This is initiation. When everything sacred collapses, the heart remains. A steady drum in the void. Happiness was never light. It was alignment and the heart. has been pointing true since the beginning of time. 4. The hardest ease, the easiest thing to be, is the hardest thing to do. No masks required, no performance rehearsed, just standing fully in your own name. Being yourself asks for courage, to disappoint, to be misunderstood, to remain whole, when the world prefers you edited. So when you choose it, know this, you're not failing at fitting in, you're succeeding at being real. 5. The teachable are reachable. Some doors don't open to force, only to alignment. The teachable are reachable because they arrive unarmed. No rehearsed defenses, no need to win the room. They listen without tightening, adjust without losing themselves. They know that learning is not submission, it's movement. Correction doesn't offend them, it informs them. Guidance isn't a threat, it's a shortcut they may or may not take. The unreachable are often convinced, certain, clinging to what's familiar as if familiarity were proof. But the teachable, they understand posture. They know when to lean in, when to soften, when to change position, so something new can reach them. Growth doesn't raise its voice. Truth doesn't chase. The teachable are reachable because they've already decided that becoming matters more than being right. 6. My no, your yes. My no is not an invitation for your persuasion. It is not a door left ajar for your comfort to slip through. My no is a sentence that does not require your approval or your understanding. You call your yes generosity. You dress it up as reason. You insist it knows better than my lived experience. But your yes has a history. It arrives with expectations, with pressure disguised as care, with consequences I'm expected to absorb quietly. My no is not aggression. It is information. It is my body recognizing where harm has already been and refusing to return. You mistake resistance for disrespect because you are used to access, used to being agreed with, used to silence doing the work of compliance. But my no is doing work too. It is holding the line so I don't disappear, trying to make your yes feel good. Your yes may feel right to you, mine does not live there, and consent is not consensus. Comfort is not clarity. Agreement is not required for truth to stand. So hear this cleanly. My no does not exist to be negotiated. It exists because I do. 7. The pineapple slingshot. They learned my sweetness and assumed access. Assumed kindness was an opening instead of a boundary spoken gently. I welcomed, I listened, I made space, and they mistook space for permission. They never saw the armor because it didn't announce itself, never noticed the spikes because I carried them inward, quiet, patient, learning wait. Pineapples grow slow, they endure heat without complaint, soil that withholds, hands that harvest without gratitude. I learned the same discipline, how to offer warmth without surrender, how to smile without becoming small, how to observe while being underestimated. They aimed casually through assumptions, tested limits they hoped were imaginary, but survival sharpens sweetness, and restraint is just power that knows timing. The slingshot was never anger, it was memory, every dismissal stored, every trespass measured, every silence cataloged. I didn't retaliate, I aligned, pulled back only enough to be precise, launched truth without theatrics, sweet enough to disarm, heavy enough to land, no spectacle, no apology, just consequence delivered with accuracy. They expected collapse. They received correction, because the lesson was never don't come close. It was, don't mistake generosity for defenselessness. The pineapple is not fragile. It is selective, and when sweetness finally strikes back, it does so, without missing. 8. How to see, open your eyes, to notice the beauty in everyone, the unseen kindness, the quiet resilience, the stories carried softly behind ordinary faces. Close your eyes to see the beauty in everything, the lessons in loss, the grace in endings, the meaning that lives beyond what can be touched. Some truths require vision, others require surrender. And the deepest beauty is found when you learn when to look and when to let go. 9. What the heart says, listen to the voice. That never speaks a word. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg. It simply knows, before language, before fear, before the world taught you how to doubt. It was already there, guiding you home. The heart doesn't shout for attention. It waits for stillness. And when you finally listen, you realize it's been telling the truth all along. 10. Seeing clearly, if you see me, as the man I am, not the man you imagine, not the one shaped by your expectations. I can stand fully in my own skin. When I am allowed to be real, I am free to be responsible. When I am met with honesty, I rise to integrity. I do not become better by being molded. I become better by being seen. And in that clarity, without performance or disguise, I can always be the man I should be. 11. Answered. Today is yesterday's prayer. The breath you almost forgot to thank, the morning you once begged to see, the strength you asked for and didn't recognize when it arrived. What you stand in now was once a hope whispered in fear, a wish made quietly, when no one was watching. So walk gently through this moment. You are standing inside an answer. 12. What is enough? Humility teaches you to value what rests in your hands. Charity teaches you to release what does not. Together, they do more than shape gratitude. They give you the strength to appreciate what you don't have and no longer need. There is power in wanting less. There is peace in knowing enough is already present. Section 3. The work of becoming. 1. Small miracles, children's laughter, is medicine for the soul, the kind that works without instructions. Their smiles cleanse the heart, washing away what the world leaves behind, and their love, pure and fearless, is the ammunition for happiness, arming us with joy we didn't know we were missing. 2. Missionaries. Mothers are missionaries of love. They go where they are needed, often without thanks, often without rest. They preach with patience, teach through sacrifice, and heal with hands that never stop reaching. Their faith is not spoken, it is lived, and the world survives because they never abandon their mission. 3. The Wonder Women. They never wore capes. They wore mornings that started anyway. They wore grief quietly and fed everyone else first. The world calls them strong because it doesn't know what else to say when softness survives conditions meant to crush it. They learned endurance early, how to make joy stretch, how to turn exhaustion into ritual, how to hold the center when everything leaned on them. They were never waiting to be saved. They were busy saving time, saving stories, saving people who didn't yet know how close they were to disappearing. The Wonder Women are not mythical. They are specific. They have names spoken with reverence and some never spoken at all. They taught without lectures, loved without guarantees, showed up without applause, left fingerprints on futures they would never fully witness. Their power was never loud. It moved through consistency, through showing up again, through choosing care, even when the cost was personal. They were underestimated because they didn't announce themselves. They were extraordinary because they didn't need to. The Wonder Women didn't bend the world by force. They held it together long enough for the rest of us to become. 4. The Pursuit. The one who's really been after your heart never needed to chase you. They've been there, quiet, consistent, waiting in every reflection you passed without stopping. All your life, you searched for understanding in others, for acceptance in rooms, for love in voices that sounded certain. You mistook desire for distance and longing for something missing. But the truth was never far away. It watched you flinch. It watched you pretend. It watched you survive moments that demanded more than you thought you had. Every mirror held the same witness, the one who knew your fears, your resilience, your unfinished healing, the one who asked nothing but honesty. The hardest pursuit was never about being chosen. It was about choosing yourself without conditions, without apology. And when you finally meet your own eyes and do not turn away, you understand you were never being hunted. You were being called to come home. 5. At the edge of continuing, when I feel as if I just can't go on and the weight becomes something I no longer carry, but become, I stop pretending this is just exhaustion. This is grief without a funeral. This is love with nowhere to rest. This is the cost of staying conscious in a world that rewards numbness. There are moments when even hope feels like a burden, another thing asking me to perform resilience. So I let it fall. I let everything fall except breath. What remains is not strength. It is not faith. It is not optimism. It is a small, stubborn awareness that I am still here, while something inside me is still watching. That witness, the quiet one, knows I have survived things that once felt unsurvivable, knows I have stood in endings that did not end me. So I do not promise tomorrow. I do not reach for meaning. I only agree to this moment. One breath, one more refusal to disappear, and somehow that is enough to keep the world from closing in. 6. Alignment. Fear was never your enemy. It stands closest to your gift because it recognizes power. What scares you is often what you do best, the place where instinct moves before confidence arrives. Your hands remember what doubt tries to erase. Your spirit knows the work long before you name it. Alignment isn't fear leaving. It's fear stepping aside so your talent can lead. When they meet, one bows, and it's never the gift. 7. Bird's eye truth, the ability to rise, was never about leaving. It was about seeing from the ground. Every moment feels massive. Every weight insists it is permanent. But elevation has a way of telling the truth without raising its voice. When you rise, the noise loses its authority. What once towered over you becomes a small shape outlined by distance. Some situations only feel powerful because you are standing too close. Perspective is not denial. It is clarity. From a bird's eye view, conflict shrinks into context, pain becomes a chapter, and fear reveals its actual size. Rise not to escape, but to understand. What survives the climb was always worth carrying, and what disappears below you was never meant to follow. 8. To awake looking for the dream, to awake looking for the dream is to trust that the night didn't lie to you. It is opening your eyes with expectation still alive, believing that what stirred your spirit can find its shape in daylight. Some dreams don't fade with morning. They wait. They stretch themselves into small beginnings, into chances disguised as ordinary moments. To awake looking for the dream is to greet the day, like a conversation still unfolding, to listen for meaning. In places you once rushed past, hope is not loud. It arrives quietly, in curiosity, in courage that feels gentle, in the decision to try again without bitterness. You don't chase the dream. You walk toward it with patience, letting it meet you halfway, in growth, in grace, in becoming. And one morning, you awake and realize you are no longer searching. You are living what once only visited you in sleep. 9. The war on right. This is not a debate. It is a difference in direction. Right moves toward repair. Wrong moves toward control. One asks who was harmed. The other asks who can be blamed. Right tells the truth, even when it costs something. Wrong learns the language of reason so it can excuse itself. In this war, right is often quiet, busy doing the work, busy holding lines. That don't make headlines. Wrong is louder. It thrives on confusion, on false balance, on making right seem optional. But right has gravity. It bends the future slowly, pulling consequences into alignment no matter how long it takes. The war on right is not won by noise. It is won by consistency, by choosing right when wrong offers shortcuts. Because in the end, wrong burns fast and leaves nothing to stand on. Right builds, and what is built outlives the war. 10. When justice comes knocking, it does not rush. It carries patience learned from those forced to wait. It arrives with memory, unanswered prayers, voices that survived without being believed. Justice is not revenge, it is truth returning home. Some doors resist, some hinges strain. Justice understands delay, fear, the cost of opening. It stands there anyway, because justice is not a moment, it is repair, a realignment, a future asked to do better. And when the door opens, justice does not demand praise. It asks for responsibility, hope ready to work. 11. I can smell the breaking of justice. Something shifts in the air before the verdict is spoken, iron rising, truth overheated and bending under pressure. It's the scent of something sworn to protect now learning how to look away. Justice breaks quietly, in rooms where procedure replaces people, where policy is lifted like a shield, and empathy is told to wait. It fractures without spectacle, because silence has been trained to cooperate. It once smelled like rain, clean, renewing, accountable. Now it smells like rusted gates, polished daily so no one asks what's being kept out. When justice breaks, it doesn't fall. It stands crooked and still demands respect. But I know the smell, and naming it is how the breaking stops pretending. Section 4. What remains is home. 1. When you become you, you stop begging rooms to recognize your light. You walk in already illuminated, already whole. When you become you, your boundaries stop apologizing. No becomes a complete sentence, and silence becomes a sanctuary, not a punishment. You stop confusing intensity for intimacy and chaos for passion. You learn that peace is not boring, it's honest. When you become you, you forgive yourself for surviving the ways you had to. You loosen your grip on shame and stop rehearsing old pain like it's a requirement. You choose growth over familiarity, even when familiarity wears a familiar face. You understand that not everyone who touched your life was meant to stay in it. When you become you, you no longer abandon yourself to be chosen. You don't shrink, soften, or disappear just to fit someone else's comfort. You become your own safe place, your own witness, your own home. And from that place, love doesn't arrive to rescue you. It arrives to meet you. Because when you become you, you are no longer searching for love. You are introducing it to who you already are. 2. Chin up, my brother. I've watched the way black men carry the morning. Before the world has decided what it will demand of them, the quiet inventory, the scan for safety, the decision to stand anyway. I know that look, the one passed down without words, the one that says I'm still here, even when history suggested otherwise. Chin up, my brother, my black brother, not as instruction, but as recognition. They read your body before they hear your voice, measure your breath, question your presence, ask your grief to stay small so it doesn't make anyone uncomfortable. You learned early how to be aware without appearing afraid, how to be strong without being hardened, how to survive without letting survival be the only thing you are. They mistake your restraint for emptiness, your silence for absence, your patience for permission. They do not see how much care you carry privately, how much gentleness you ration because the world treats it like something you cannot afford. But I see you. I see the way black men hold families together with humor, hold pain without witnesses, hold joy carefully, as if protecting it from being taken. Your softness is not weakness. Your laughter is not carelessness. Your survival is not accidental. Every time you choose tenderness, in a world that keeps demanding armor, you are doing radical work, without applause. So lift your chin, my brother, not to prove anything, but to breathe fully, to see one another, to remember that you were never meant to carry this alone. We are still here, still loving, still becoming, still refusing to disappear quietly. Chin up, my black brother, not for them, for yourself, for the life that keeps insisting you belong in it. 3. 60 seconds. At an ancient temple, Egypt held still. Stone remembered gods. Time thinned. He came looking for escape, from days that repeated themselves until meaning dulled, and found a question instead. A scroll waited, not generous, not forgiving. 60 seconds returned. Once a century, no revisions. Others had tried, scholars with certainty, lovers with hunger, men who mistook force for worth. The temple kept them empty-handed. When he touched the scroll, memory answered. Script curled alive. A pulse matched his own. Joy rose first, his mother's pride, his grandmother's final warmth. Then the world intervened. A merchant's wisdom, an artist unseen, a girl dreaming past poverty towards something useful, something healing. Everywhere the same ache, if only I had one more minute. The minute changed. Back at the temple, twilight waited. Walls breathed. His grandmother's hum returned, not instruction, but trust. Some power is not meant to retrieve the past. Some power exists to widen the future. 60 seconds stood ready, not as escape, as offering, and he understood time matters most when it is given. where it can keep going. 4. I hear the faint whisper of Africa calling my name. I hear the faint whisper of Africa calling my name, not as a request, but as recognition. It does not rush. It waits, like earth beneath bare feet that already knows your weight. Sometimes it comes as drums, deep, patient, unquestioned. Not music, instruction. A rhythm that reminds the body how to stand correctly. Sometimes it comes with the rattle of cowrie shells, soft against movement, counting what matters, protection, survival, continuity, nothing wasted, nothing forgotten. The sound travels through blood, through bone, through memory older than language. It straightens what was bent. It steadies what kept going anyway. Africa does not call me back. She calls me awake. She speaks in essay. The power that carried breath forward, the force that refused disappearance, the life that kept choosing itself. The whisper says, "You are not lost, you are remembering." And I answer, by keeping rhythm, by standing tall, by letting what survived continue to live through me. 5. The melody of silence in the Louisiana swamps, where moss drapes time from cypress limbs and water remembers every step. There is a town that listens. Eldridge lives off-grid, 2,000 souls breathing with the land, carrying stories older than their own names. A song once lived here, not written, not translated, a language that slipped beneath speech and waited. Amina arrived already knowing this, non-verbal, but never quiet. Her silence was dense with meaning, filled with birdsong, wind, the slow wisdom of water. She wandered the swamp like it was kin, eyes lit with fireflies, skin dark as fertile earth. One afternoon, resting against an ancient cypress, she hummed, not practiced, not learned, remembered. The sound moved through roots and reeds, lifted itself over water, and found people where they were hurting. Mothers softened, old men unclenched grief, children forgot how to quarrel. No one knew the words. Everyone understood. Each day she returned. Each day the town gathered, not to explain, but to feel. When the melody deepened, colors rose with it, ancestors stepping forward, memory breathing again. A past not lost but waiting. The song spoke what mouths could not. Love carried. Loss survived. Healing shared. When asked to define it, Amina only smiled. Some truths are not meant to be named. They are meant to be held. So Eldridge listened. They told their stories. They sat beneath cypress shade. They let silence lead. And the melody, once forgotten, became a chorus of belonging, proof that even without words, a voice can gather a people, and that in the deepest quiet, something ancient still knows how to sing. 6. Whispers of the past. I returned without traveling, a small Alabama town still warm with memory, stars hanging like lanterns over what never fully released me. I stood in my old high school, color-drained, the world remembering itself instead of moving on. Empty halls breathed, walls whispered, the building waited to see who I had become. Then a child, 4 or 5, dark and radiant, jacket too tight, jeans cuffed for a future he hadn't grown into yet. He took my hand. I didn't question it. In the glass, our reflections moved together, mine worn and unfinished, his perfectly aligned. I understood. He wasn't beside me. He was me. When I leaned closer, he disappeared, leaving a scarf bright with color, once a flag, now wrapped around my neck like inheritance. My clothes were torn. I had traveled further than I knew. A hidden door appeared, no handle, no lock, only knowing. A small brown puppy slept beside it, trust breathing in and out. When I lifted it, the door opened. Inside, a narrow refuge, trinkets, vials, a desk cluttered with survival. A black and white screen flickered, static pretending to watch. I sat. A voice spoke, steady, unmistakable. The teachable are reachable. I woke with the words still holding me. Growth, I learned, sometimes leads you back. Sometimes it takes your hand. Sometimes it waits in silence until you are ready to listen. The past still whispers, and now I hear it. 7. Hate, I command you to stand down. Hate, I command you to stand down. Your whispers of division no longer hold sway. You thrive in shadows, feeding on despair, but your grip weakens in the light of truth. Feel the strength of those who rise, hearts unyielding, voices united. We dismantle your fortress, brick by brick, with compassion as our weapon. You may rage and lash out, but love will always counter your darkness. In the spaces where you once thrived, there blooms understanding, a tapestry woven from shared humanity. So stand down, for your time is ending, and in your wake, we will build a world of hope. 8. I will not be denied. I did not arrive by permission. I arrived by continuation. What came before me did not end. It rearranged itself into breath, into will, into a body that keeps going. I have been asked to wait until the world felt ready. I have been told timing was a kindness I did not yet deserve. But inheritance does not ask. Every refusal clarified me. Every closed way taught me how direction works without doors. Every silence confirmed what could not be spoken aloud. I am not excess. I am not exception. I am the math working out despite the subtraction. I stand where denial expected absence. I speak where erasure rehearsed quiet. This is not defiance. It is accuracy. I am here because continuation is older than resistance. I will not be denied. 9. Unclench the hate. Release what no longer belongs in your hands, in your chest, in the quiet places where you learn to brace. Hate was never meant to live inside you, never meant to tighten your breath or train your heart to bruise itself in silence. Some things arrive as protection, born in moments of survival, and stay too long, confusing endurance with identity, mistaking pain for purpose. But you are not required to keep what is killing you, just because it once kept you alive. Unclench what is destroying you inside and out. Set it down. Make room for a life that does not ask you to bleed in order to exist. 10. I ain't got long to stay. I ain't got long to stay, so I'm done whispering what needs to be said, done folding myself smaller to make others comfortable with my truth. I ain't got long to stay, and time been honest with me. It don't wait, don't negotiate, don't care how ready you think you are, so I love out loud now. I forgive quicker, I walk away sooner. I choose peace like it's oxygen. I ain't got long to stay, so I stopped collecting apologies that never come and explanations I don't owe. I plant seeds for trees I may never sit under, because legacy ain't about shade. It's about roots. I ain't got long to stay, and I finally understand being real costs less than pretending ever did. So if I leave a mark, let it be honest. If I leave a memory, let it be kind. If I leave a lesson, let it be this. Life don't wait for permission. Love don't need perfection. And purpose don't ask how long, only how true. I ain't got long to stay, but I was here, and I meant it. 11. The weight of a tear. A tear looks light, barely a thing at all. But it carries whole conversations we were never brave enough to finish. A tear holds the weight of restraint, of swallowing words to keep the peace, of smiling through moments that quietly broke us in half. Each one is a sentence written in salt and memory, dragging behind it grief, relief, rage, love we couldn't place anywhere else. Some tears fall when we lose something. Others fall when we finally let go. Both weigh the same when they land on the heart. A tear remembers the body's truth before the mind learns how to lie. It doesn't argue. It doesn't perform. It just tells. The weight of a tear is not in how fast it drops, but in how long it was carried before it was allowed to fall. And when it finally does, it doesn't mean weakness. It means something heavy has been set down. 12. Lily pads and butterflies. The water never asks how long you've been holding your breath. It just keeps pressing memory on muscle, grief on bone. So I learned the mercy of pause. Lily pads aren't safety. They're agreements with the moment. I will not drown today. Butterflies understand this language. They dissolve before they rise. The cocoon doesn't transform. It erases what can no longer go forward. No one warns you how lonely becoming is, how much must fall apart before flight feels possible. Lily pads rise from mud. Butterflies rise from collapse. Both ask for surrender that looks like stillness to anyone watching. If I hesitate, it's not fear. It's knowing what it costs to float and what it will cost to fly. 13. Hurry before the streetlights come on. Hurry before the streetlights come on, before the sky turns the color of warning, before laughter has to learn curfews, before freedom gets a bedtime. We ran with scraped knees and full hearts, chasing nothing and everything, believing the world was ours until supper called us home. Hurry before the streetlights come on, when promises were pinky sworn, and tomorrow felt endless, like it had never learned how to leave. Back then, time whispered. Now it clears its throat. Hurry before the streetlights come on, before love gets cautious, before trust starts keeping score, before joy learns how to flinch. There was a moment, right there between dusk and dark, where we were still becoming, still unafraid to be seen. The streetlights weren't just rules, they were mercy, a reminder that even freedom needs somewhere safe to land. Hurry, not because time is cruel, but because it is generous only once. Some parts of us are still outside, waiting to be called in. Root. Before there was language, there was holding. Roots learned it first, how to stay when the ground forgets you, how to choose depth when surface promises fail. They don't rush downward. They listen. They follow what's older than hope, pressure, pull, the faint memory of water moving somewhere below. Roots carry stories the tree never tells. Famine, fire, storms that pass too close. They remember so the rest can rise without knowing why it's safe. This is not just quiet work. It looks like patience. It looks like endurance. It looks like choosing where to anchor when no one is watching. Some roots grow deep because the ground demanded it, because staying upright required negotiation with darkness, because survival asked for intimacy with what's unseen. I come from that kind of knowing, the kind that doesn't glow but steadies, the kind that bends the earth just enough to make room. So if I stand firm, if I weather what should undo me, don't search the branches for explanation. The truth has always been underground, working, remembering, holding everything you see in place. 15. I am an ancestor in the making. Before I had a name, I was a possibility, circulating through bloodlines that refused to disappear. I am stitched together from survival, from backs that bent but did not break, from tongues that learned silence and still found ways to sing. I carry fingerprints that were never allowed to sign their own freedom. I carry spines that were counted as property yet still stood upright in spirit. I am not an accident. I am an arrival. In my bones, maps of migrations, midnights of mourning, and mornings that came anyway. There are names I will never know who breathe through me still. I am the moment the cycle looks at itself and decides it will not continue unchanged. And when I am gone, when my voice becomes memory and my footsteps turn to story, I want my descendants to feel me in their bravery, in the way they rest without guilt, in the way they love without permission. I want them to say, whoever came before me fought for more than survival. They fought for my becoming. Section 5. The parts that refuse to break. 1. The finish may not always reflect the start. Beginnings are rarely honest about where they're headed. They arrive awkward, unfinished, sometimes wearing fear like a name tag. Starts can be loud or uncertain, full of borrowed confidence and missing instructions. They don't know yet what they'll grow into. But time is generous. It teaches posture. It smooths rough edges. It replaces urgency with rhythm. Some journeys wobble first. Some stumble into their stride. Some look lost until joy finally recognizes them and says, "Oh, you're mine." The start only opens the door. It doesn't choose the ending. Finishes arrive with perspective, lighter hands, stronger footing, a laugh where tension used to live. They carry grace the beginning didn't earn yet, ease that came from staying, confidence that learned how to breathe. Not everything that begins messy ends that way. Some things learn how to shine along the road. The finish may not always reflect the start, but it often reveals something better, that growth can be playful, that joy remembers the way, and that becoming sometimes ends in a smile no one saw coming. 2. Look what I can do. They said no, not like that. Said it gently. Said it certain. Said it like limits were facts. Small hands paused, looked again, adjusted nothing, tried anyway, wobbled, missed the mark, laughed, tried again. Because children don't argue with doubt, they test it. Careful, they said. You might fall, you might fail, you might not. The child heard try. So they climbed higher, jumped farther, learned balance where fear expected retreat, and when it worked, when the impossible did the unthinkable, there was no speech, no lecture, just a grin wide enough to rewrite the rules. Look what I can do, they said, not to boast, to inform, because sometimes proof is the loudest joy there is. 3. Forget to remember. Some memories don't stay because they matter. They stay because you keep checking if they still control you. Pain learns routines. It waits to be summoned. It survives on attention long after the threat is gone. Forgetting is not weakness. It's withdrawal. It's refusing to keep feeding what already took enough. The mind clings to harm because harm feels familiar, predictable, rehearsed, safer than the unknown quiet that comes after release. But replay is not processing. It's captivity with subtitles, a way to feel active while staying stuck. Healing begins when you stop narrating the wound, when you let the body exit what the mind keeps revisiting. To forget is not to deny what happened. It is to revoke its authority, to remove it from the role of narrator in a story it no longer deserves to tell. Remembering, real remembering, isn't detail. It's distance. It's being able to say that shaped me without letting it command me. Some things must be forgotten so the nervous system can learn that danger has passed. Some memories loosen only when you stop interrogating them for meaning they were never meant to give. So forget, deliberately. Forget what no longer belongs to the present moment. Forget what only survives because you keep returning to it, because remembering yourself sometimes requires forgetting the version of you that learned to live on alert. 4. Saturday morning cartoons. The world knew better back then. It stayed quiet on purpose. Let the sun sneak in gently. Let the day stretch before asking anything. Pajamas all day was a lifestyle, hair undefeated, teeth brushed. Eventually, the TV came on like a secret, volume low at first just in case, then louder because grown-ups were still dreaming and cartoons deserved respect. Cereal was an adventure, too much sugar, milk almost missed the bowl, nobody cared, heroes always figured it out. Villains were dramatic, everything important could be solved before lunchtime. The floor was prime real estate, the couch was optional. Imagination sat cross-legged and ran the show. Saturday morning cartoons taught us something quietly, that rest was allowed, that joy didn't need permission, that happiness could show up early and stay a while. No emails, no rushing, no pressure to be impressive, just laughter, color, and the radical idea that doing nothing could still feel like everything. Even now, some part of us remembers that version of time, when mornings were kind and fun came first. Somewhere inside, the cartoons are still playing, waiting patiently for us to sit down, grab a bowl, and let the day start slow and sweet. 5. The sound of good. Good is not loud. It learned early that survival often depends on knowing when not to speak. The sound of good is what follows harm when it finally leaves the room. The quiet after vigilance retires. The moment the body stops scanning and remembers how to rest. Good sounds like safety returning before language catches up. Like a nervous system unclenching, like breath choosing depth again without being told it's allowed. It is the sound of alignment, not perfection, but truth settling into place. Good hums, it resonates low, it lives beneath the noise where fear used to rehearse outcomes. It sounds like being believed without explanation, like presence that doesn't flinch, like hands that don't take more than they're offered. The sound of good is not excitement. It is steadiness. It is continuity. It is the relief of not having to defend your existence in the moment you're standing in. Sometimes it sounds like laughter, but not the kind that escapes, the kind that arrives because nothing is being threatened. Sometimes it sounds like silence, not emptiness, but fullness without demand. The sound of good is recognition. It is the body saying this is right, even when the mind is still learning how to trust it. Good doesn't echo. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't ask to be recorded. It simply stays. And that is how you know you've heard it. 6. Still smiling. No one taught us how to keep joy after the lesson. They taught endurance. They taught posture. They taught how to survive without falling apart in public. But smiling, that came later. It arrived quietly, not as denial, but as evidence. Evidence that the weight lifted just enough. That laughter found a way back in without asking permission. Still smiling doesn't mean nothing hurt. It means the hurt didn't get the final word. It means joy learned how to live alongside memory, how to stretch without forgetting what it took to stand again. Some smiles are loud, others are private, worn like a soft jacket you reach for without thinking. Still smiling is not naive, it is practiced. It is the result of choosing light after knowing dark intimately. It says, I remember, I healed, I stayed, and somehow, after everything, I'm still smiling. 7. Where'd you get that joy? They ask it sideways, half smiling, like joy is a receipt you're supposed to keep, like it must have come from somewhere approved, earned properly. Explain neatly. Where'd you get that joy? They ask after everything they know you've lived through. You don't answer right away, because joy didn't arrive in one piece. It came stitched together, found moments, small mercies, laughter salvaged from ordinary days. You got it from staying, from learning when to rest instead of disappear, from choosing softness after the world suggested armor. You got it from people who didn't ask you to shrink, from memories that still smile back, from play that reminded you you were more than what hurt you. That joy wasn't handed to you. It grew, slow, persistent, right alongside the healing. So when they ask, where'd you get that joy? You finally smile and say, I kept it 8, a date with my inner child. I didn't dress up, didn't rehearse, just showed up with time and an open seat. They were already there, feet swinging, eyes bright with questions, holding something small and important they wanted to show me. We didn't talk about productivity, didn't review the past like a report. We went straight to joy. Ice cream before dinner, extra sprinkles, no guilt. We laughed at nothing, pointed at clouds, stayed a little too long where the sun felt kind. My inner child asked things I forgot how to answer honestly. Can we stay? Can we play? Do you still like me? I said yes without explaining why. That felt new. We didn't fix anything, didn't unpack every memory. We just spent time without asking it to heal us, and somehow that was healing. When the date ended, they hugged me tight, not desperate, just certain. Do this again, they said. I will. Because loving myself didn't start with understanding. It started with showing up and choosing joy on purpose. 9. Becoming looks ordinary from the outside. Same face, same walk, same laugh at the wrong moment. But inside, something is rearranging without permission. Old rules stop working. Old fears lose their grip. You don't announce it, you just stop participating in what no longer fits. Becoming is the moment you don't chase what once chased you. When you recognize yourself by how little you have to perform, it's not growth you can measure, it's direction you can feel. You don't arrive, you continue. And somehow, that's enough to change everything. 10. The house made of tomorrow, we didn't build it all at once. Tomorrow doesn't work that way. We laid one plank at a time, a promise here, a lesson there, a mistake repurposed instead of thrown away. The foundation wasn't certainty. It was willingness. Windows came from old hopes we cleaned instead of replacing. Doors were hung wide enough to welcome change without letting fear move in rent-free. Some rooms are still unfinished. That's intentional. There's space for laughter we haven't discovered yet. Corners waiting for music that hasn't learned our names. A table set for people we haven't met, but will. The house made of tomorrow doesn't erase yesterday. It uses it. Scars became beams, patience became stairs. Joy learned how to live upstairs where the light stays longer. And every night when we lock the doors and turn off the noise, the house creaks softly, not from weakness, but from growing into itself. This isn't a dream home, it's a becoming home. And every morning we wake up inside proof that hope can be built, slowly, honestly, and strong enough to last. 11. Will you be there to catch me when I fall? I ask it without fear now. Not as a plea, just to check in with gravity. Because falling still happens, even after learning. Even on steady ground. There's no answer spoken, only response. A pause instead of panic, a breath that arrives on time, a sense of balance I didn't consciously practice but somehow kept. I fall, and nothing collapses. Something holds the moment in place. Something reminds me that I've landed before and lived, so I don't search the sky. I don't brace for impact. I trust what shows up inside the fall itself. Yes, there is support here. Still. And when I fall, I land with enough ease to stand back up without apology. 12. I pledge allegiance to the unheard and unseen. I pledge allegiance to the unheard and unseen, not as an abstraction, but as people, to the voices trained into silence, to the stories edited out for comfort's sake, to the truths that learned how to survive without applause. I pledge allegiance to the quiet courage of showing up when the room was never built for you, to the patience of waiting without confusing delay for consent. I pledge allegiance to those who learned how to read a space before entering it, who mastered listening because speaking came with consequences. This is not a promise of rescue. It is a commitment to recognition, to look longer, to listen past convenience, to believe without requiring proof that costs dignity. I pledge allegiance to the unseen labor of becoming, the healing done off stage, the strength that doesn't perform, the joy that blooms anyway. This allegiance doesn't wave flags, it holds doors, it makes room, it refuses to forget. And until the unheard are heard, until the unseen are seen clearly, this pledge stands, not as ceremony, but as practice, as presence, as care that does not look away. 13. I vacationed in your dreams last night. I vacationed in your dreams last night, no luggage, no explanations, just arrival. Time slowed there. Nothing asked to be productive, nothing needed fixing. We walked without urgency, sat where the light lingered longest. The air felt familiar, like a place the body remembers even when the mind pretends it doesn't. You smiled without guarding it. I spoke without editing myself. No past tugged at our sleeves. No future waited impatiently nearby. In your dreams, I wasn't a responsibility or a regret. I was just present, welcome, without conditions. We didn't touch much, didn't need to. Closeness handled the rest. I left before morning could ask questions, before reality could interrupt with its careful rules and unfinished sentences. I woke up carrying the ease of it, that version of us that exists when the world isn't watching. If you felt lighter today, if something softened unexpectedly, that was me. Still stretching in the quiet, still unpacking peace, still remembering how good it felt to rest inside someone else's sleep. Onward, my fellow weirdos. Onward, my fellow weirdos. The ones who never fit the mold because the mold was too small for their imagination. Onward, you soft-hearted truth-tellers. You question-askers. You laugh at the wrong moment survivors. You feel too much and still show up anyway, souls. The world tried to sand you down, tried to call your depth extra, your curiosity unnecessary, your joy suspicious. You kept going. You learned to make homes out of friendships, out of late-night conversations, out of shared silence that didn't ask you to explain yourself. You found each other, not by accident, but by frequency. Onward, you beautiful misfits, walking proof that normal was never the goal, connection was. Keep wearing your questions openly. Keep loving without instructions. Keep choosing wonder in a world addicted to certainty. The path ahead won't always be straight, but it will be yours. And that's the point. So onward, not toward perfection, but toward each other, toward meaning, toward a life that feels honest when you look back at it. Onward, my fellow weirdos. The world needs what only we know how to carry. 15. Still here is a victory. Suicide is often framed as an ending. But what rarely gets said is how many times it is considered and quietly declined. How often someone stands at the edge of a thought and chooses to keep living without fanfare. That choice matters. Staying is not passive. It is an action. It is deciding that this hour deserves another one, that the story is not done speaking, that the future has not yet made its strongest argument. Life does not demand certainty. It responds to willingness. To the courage of remaining open when closing would be easier, to the resolve of saying, I will see what happens next. Suicide promises an end. Life offers expansion, new rooms, new versions of joy, new reasons that only exist because someone stayed long enough to meet them. The world changes when a person chooses to remain. Paths shift, connections form, moments happen that would not exist otherwise. Still here is not a delay. It is a declaration. It says, I am not finished. It says possibility is still active. It says, "The future is allowed to surprise me. Every day someone stays, the world quietly improves, not because everything is fixed, but because something essential remains. Still here is a victory the future depends on." 16. The universe's embrace. The universe does not reach for you. It does not need to. You were never outside of it. You are made of the same insistence that keeps stars burning long after their light should have faded. The same math that refuses collapse until every possibility is exhausted. Nothing about you is accidental. Even your doubt follows laws older than belief. When you feel pressure, that is gravity remembering you. When you feel pulled forward, that is momentum continuing its work. The universe does not cradle you like something fragile, it anchors you like something essential. You are held the way oceans are held, by boundaries that look like freedom until they disappear. Every atom in you has survived catastrophe, explosions, separations, reformations. You are not evidence of survival, you are the result of it. So when you stand still, the universe does not grow impatient. Stillness is also motion when measured correctly. The universe's embrace is not warmth, it is inevitability. You belong because you are composed of the same forces that refuse to stop becoming. And even when you feel unfinished, especially then, the universe recognizes itself in you, not as mercy, as fact. 17. The Caribbean Nights. The Caribbean Nights don't rush anything. They let heat sit on skin long enough to be noticed, long enough to mean something. The air stays close, warm, knowing, as if it understands what bodies remember before they explain themselves. Music moves low and patient, not asking for attention, just setting the pace for hips, for breath, for the space between two people standing close enough to feel choice. Eyes meet, hold, release, meet again. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's the point. Salt gathers at collarbones, laughter softens into quiet. Desire deepens because no one is rushing it. The night watches without interfering. The sea keeps rhythm nearby, steady and certain, reminding everything present that movement can be slow and still powerful. Here, intimacy doesn't perform, it listens. It waits for the moment when leaning closer feels inevitable instead of impulsive. The Caribbean Nights don't promise magic, they offer permission to be fully here, fully awake, fully aware of how good it feels to be wanted without being chased, and when the night finally loosens, it leaves no spectacle behind, only a memory in the body that says, "This was real, this was chosen, this mattered." 18. Heard. I spoke once. It was enough. The truth didn't need volume or witnesses. It arrived. It stayed. No distortion, no rescue. Just reality standing upright without permission. Heard. And nothing else was required. Acknowledgements. No work of reflection is ever created alone. My deepest gratitude belongs to VJ, whose love, patience, and steady presence have been a quiet foundation beneath so many of these words. Thank you for believing in my voice even on the days I was still learning how to hear it. To my tribe, you know who you are. You are the laughter between the heavy moments, the honesty that keeps me grounded, and the reminder that chosen family can be one of life's greatest gifts. Your presence in my life is a constant lesson in loyalty, joy, and showing up for one another. To my friends and family, thank you for the many ways you have shaped the person who writes these poems. Some of you encouraged me when the words were still uncertain. Others simply loved me through the seasons that made these poems necessary. Both matter more than you know. And finally, gratitude for the countless conversations, moments of reflection, and quiet observations that became the seeds of this book. These poems were written to listen, to truth, to growth, to memory, and to the voices that help us become who we are meant to be. For everyone who helped me keep listening, thank you. Dee Carr. Author's note. I didn't write these poems to persuade, perform, or perfect anything. I wrote them to listen, to what surfaced when I stopped rehearsing, to what remained after certainty fell away, to the truths that speak softly but refuse to leave. This collection follows the work of becoming, how pressure shapes us, how silence teaches us, how joy returns after it has been earned. Some poems arrive as witnesses, others arrive as questions. All of them ask for honesty before agreement. If you recognize yourself here, it is not because these poems explain you, but because listening often sounds familiar,